Hello. I don't want you to see me. I'm naked.
I've missed you, Lee. It's been a couple of weeks I haven't seen you.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I have.
Well, I feel like I've seen you because I watched the other shows, so it's not like I haven't seen you. See,
it sounds like he misses you, Lee.
Oh, that's love.
So guys, we wanted to have a bit of a somber show because it'll be about I don't know how somber it'll be with Leon. Leo always makes practical jokes all the time, but the point of it is to have a serious discussion really about depression. Because what happens specifically, well, before going into that, so I have 3 goals. Like the first one is to break down barriers and show other people that they're not alone. Because actually a lot of people watching this channel have told me they're depressed or even suicidal and so on, and commented in the comment section. The second one is to show that it is not unmasculine to be depressed. That's not a not manly thing. It is not manly to go around and bitch about it and do nothing about it, obviously. But to be depressed or to admit that is not a masculine thing. And the third one is to offer other people words of encouragement from your own experiences. So I thought we would start with Lee because, Lee, you recently discussed your experiences on an Instagram live, which my wife happened to watch, actually. And she told me about it. I haven't watched it myself. I want to ask you, could you tell us more detail about what's going on?
It's hard to say. When you talk about depression, because I guess there's all different types, where people are like, chronically depressed, where they're just depressed all the time and stuff like that. I'm more one of those people where, I guess they say cancerians because I'm a cancer. We bottle shit inside. Like people can shit on me, but I'll let it build up and build up. This could go on for years where I might not even feel depressed for a year or two. I'd say I get more pissed off, not even offended, just pissed off at something. Like, someone could shit on you, do something wrong. You're like, okay, fair enough. I'll keep that inside. And then it'll build up and build up and build up. And I'm one of those people where I'll be that person one day someone steps on my toe and I'd pull out a gun and shoot him in the head. They're like, what'd you do that for? I'd be like, well, it wasn't that he stepped on my toe. It was all this other shit that built up from 2 or 3 years of accumulating. So that's where I sometimes think it's a good thing I don't live in the USA and own a weapon because it could be dangerous. So it's a good thing they outlawed guns here. But I remember, like I told the story, when I first attempted suicide, I was only 19, and this was because, like I said, I wasn't depressed beforehand. I've been training since the age of 13, gone through one contest from 13, won the Mr. Australia at 17. They said I was too young to turn pro, won it again at 18, said I was too young to turn pro, went to the world titles, and before going to the world titles, I got drug tested twice. I was still a lightweight, so I'd never used any gear. I went to the world titles, did the drug test Thursday. On the Friday, they have that World Congress meeting where they say your athlete's been disqualified. I knew I'd be fine. Went on, competed, got to the night show, and everyone's like, Ollie, you're going to win this year. You're going to win. Our judges have you first. I'm like, listen, until I get that trophy in my hand, that's nice to hear and all, but, I'm not going to believe it. And just before I was due to go on stage, Dr. Bob Goldman does the, come here. I'm like, what? Oh, you've been disqualified. I'm like, for what? And he mentioned some drug I never heard of. And I'm just standing there as a 19-year-old. I'm thinking, how the fuck can this happen? I haven't taken anything. I got tested twice from the Australian Institute of Sport, which has some of the highest drug testing things in the world. So I'm just like, wow. So I didn't get to go on. I went back to my hotel room, and then I sort of looked over the balcony and thought, oh, it'd be easy to jump. But I called my mum up, and I think I was crying at the time because it's one of those things where I guess if you're ever an innocent person and someone says you're guilty and throws you in jail and you're like, hey, but I didn't do anything. People are like, yeah, sure you didn't. Bullshit. Yeah, you're guilty. So I spoke to my mum and she's like, no, just keep your head up. So I got dressed. I went back, watched the end of the contest. And after that, like all these athletes come to my room and who had got awards, they gave me their awards. They gave me their team tracksuits because they know that I had been totally screwed over. I come back home. My mum had a trophy made. The newspapers go, Australian bodybuilder caught drug cheat. So, and then again, trying to explain you didn't take anything. Yeah, sure you didn't. So my mum called the Institute of Sport and said, look, my son come up positive in a test over there. Oh, by the way, too, they tested my A sample. My B sample went missing. So when I got back home, my mother wanted me to get tested, but because I was a member of the IFBB, the Australian Institute of Sport, because I was a member of this sporting body, the IFBB, my mum was going to pay. It was like $347 to get the test. I had to get permission from the IFBB because they're the ones who did the first test. And the IFBB in Australia said, no, don't test him again. So I was living out the back of a gym thinking, shit, I should have had my pro card now. I could have been overseas. And then it came, put on the sad songs, sitting in the back of the gym, listening to fucking sad music, thinking I shouldn't be here, eating baked beans out of the tin. You know, you can really get yourself into that real fucking more depressed and just, oh, here comes another sad song. Let me get even more depressed. And then I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I got the knife out, fucking put it on the wrist. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, fuck it. Hacked into it, fucking it cut, but not too deep. It started bleeding, but, you know, in my mind, it'll be like the movies, fucking, I'll just come gushing out. And I'm like, well, this could take a while. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it again. So I got the knife, you know, I was poor, didn't have sharp knives, didn't have those ones you see on the TV commercials. So I got the knife and I put it back in the same cut. And when I put it in, it stung that bad. It was sort of like, boom, the light went off. I'm like, fuck, that hurt so bad. It sort of snapped me out of it. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? So, hey, Mum, you better come get me. I cut my wrist. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? So, yeah, that was the only time. And then, like, just a couple of weeks ago, I wouldn't say I got depressed. Like I said, I get more angry again because, you know, when I just see stupid shit and I get to the point where I'll be sitting there and, like I said, I hardly ever drink, hardly ever do drugs, but it's like anything else in my life. If I do it, I fucking go all out, let me tell you. So I was doing a bit of cocaine, then a bit of this, and then, here's some more pills. I'll take these pills, and then, vodka. And as I'm drinking the vodka, I'm almost fucking dry reaching it, but I'm fucking forcing it down, getting all depressed. I'm thinking, Lee, you've done enough. Because you don't drink, you probably get alcohol poisoning and all the other shit you're putting into your body. And I'm feeling worse. I'm like, fuck it, I'll just keep drinking. I think, this world fucking sucks. These dickheads. And I start, just like the general shit that goes on in life with just the cancel culture. I'm thinking, you know what, Lee, you've had a great life. You've been a top bodybuilder. You've done this, you've done that. You've raced cars, you've won championships. Oh, look, I've done more than anyone. Then I'm thinking, and then when I got to the point where I really felt bad, then it was like, oh, what can I do now? I've run out of that. I had this fucking Cialis Viagra mix in a capsule. Well, Lee, why don't you just fucking snort that? Good thing I don't know if it worked or not. Do I look like Pinocchio? Does my fucking nose go?
I'm not actually sure if it crosses the blood-brain barrier, but it might be protective for neurotoxicity.
But then I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, now I'm thinking that's going to blow my fucking brain out. And then again, the light goes off. Lee, what the fuck are you doing? And then I'm thinking, now, I was laying there. Should I go to the hospital and just say, listen, I could have OD'd on all this shit. But I thought, no, Lee, you fucking put it in your body, put up with it. And I just sort of hung around for a day or two, went through that shit where the next day you still feel, I guess, okay, because it's still in your system. But what do they call it? Suicide Tuesday, where I hate the world, I hate my life, look at this fucking shit. But then I just hung on there and came out of it. And then I probably won't do that for another couple of years. But that's the only, like I said, to me, it's not like a clinical depression. It's like it'll just be build up and build up and build up. And then when something does happen, it's like, because right now it's like my life's great. I got a great wife, family, like my mum and that and stuff. So I got nothing to complain about now. Because when I do have those days where you do feel down, and I do have those days where sometimes like I could be doing more, I could be doing this. I just look around and think, Lee, you've pretty much stopped complaining. You got a roof over your head, your bills are paid, you got some food on the table. There's a lot worse off than you. So that normally keeps me on the level playing field. It's normally, like I said, the time when I got screwed on the drug test and you're trying to tell people you never took anything and that, but then anything Lee, don't do drugs. That's what I tell myself, because when I do it, because like I said, I hardly ever do it. And when I do it, like I said, I don't drink or anything. I've probably been drunk now. I could count on one hand my whole life. I'm 49, getting close to 50. Probably 5 times in my life I've ever been drunk. I never partied when I was younger, never smoked, never drank. I never even tried cocaine till I was probably...
Till LA. You have to try cocaine if you go to LA for long enough. That wasn't your choice, really. It's not your fault.
That's the thing, because I heard that cocaine in LA, and that's cheap, like, $50 a gram and shit. This is another thing that stops me doing it in Australia. If you want a gram of cocaine, a gram of cocaine here, is like $350. So it's like
No, it's not even like, you probably couldn't tell, but it's probably watered down, stepped down stuff.
It's been probably cut. And like you said, you might be halfway through the green before you start getting a buzz. And trust me, when you start getting that buzz, you got these little fat lines, and you think, I got 8 lines left, and you're like, fuck no, that's all I've got. I got 12 lines now. The lines are getting smaller and smaller.
This is not even cocaine. It's probably 10% cocaine.
Well, every time I've used it, I've either got a fucking gas build up in the stomach. It's probably fucking that fucking stuff they use for your stomach. What is it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I always get the
baby laxative. That's what they cut it with. Baby laxative or lidocaine, one of the two.
Yeah, Fakhri would know exactly.
I would know.
I get fucking burping all the time. Burp, my guts are bloated. And then the next day, I swear to God, I could shit through the eye of a needle. It's like fucking Drano. It's just fucking diarrhea and fucking crap. I'm like, oh, fuck this.
Okay, I'm gonna, before we talk generally, I'll ask Fakhri also, because Fakhri, it happened to be that like 3 or 4 days after I talked to Lee, you made a wonderful post on Instagram. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like identifying yourself as having been depressed before, and saying something about it, indicating like it's all right, or that you faced it or whatever. Can you tell us more about that also? I know we talked about it briefly the first time we had you on the podcast. By the way, for the listeners who haven't seen it, search Fakhri Mubarak on my channel and watch that initial interview so you can get a good understanding of Fakhri. But can you tell us more about depression in your life in general? Because you come from sorry for the audience, just to understand, you come from also traumatic childhood, delinquent youth. And so I'm also interested in not just how you faced depression in childhood and now. Okay, also, by the way, the kidney issue, because people who have kidney problems often have depression. I don't know, it has to do with some of the toxins that build up. And then also people with hypertension have depression. So that's apparently the angiotensin-renin system's involved in it. And then also I noticed a lot of people that have fixed their lives, that came up from a childhood that was difficult, tend to face depression in their 40s and 50s often. So I wanted to know your thoughts on all of this and your personal experiences.
Yeah, like Lee, I've accomplished a lot in my life. So when you look inside out, like you look at my life from the outside, you're like, Fahkri Mubarak has a good life, right? I've worked very hard. I've accomplished most of my goals. Whatever goal I want to accomplish, I've accomplished. So a lot of times, like, when people talk about them being depressed and them having their own issues, and I chime in and I give them my experience and I let them know that I've suffered from it as well. Not just suffered, but I still suffer from it. They don't understand it. They're like, well, I suffer from depression because financially, it's tough between me and my family. I suffer from depression because, I'm not where I want to be. I suffer from depression for any reason whatsoever. And I've never been able to pinpoint it. If you guys go back and listen to the first video there with Leo, you kind of understand like where my life was and where I came from. At that point, and you know what, I've never really thought that my depression comes from my childhood, my teenage years, or even into my, into my early 30s and stuff. I've had therapists, and the problem with therapists is that when you're smarter than your therapist, there's only so much a therapist could actually help you with, and I know it's kind of big-headed to say you're smarter than your therapist, but I have 2 master's degrees in psychology, so like I kind of understand things, and I've been trying to pinpoint it for a long time. But, also when you speak to somebody who is a therapist, they've never gone through what you've gone through. So it's kind of hard to get advice from them. I've been on medication before. Like right now, all I really take is Ambien to go to sleep and Xanax. Like I'll probably take like a half of Xanax in the daytime if I'm going to do something. And then at nighttime, I take a half before I go to bed. But as far as the other medications like Wellbutrin, whatever they give you, Bisperin, Remeron, all that other stuff, that really has never helped, just for the fact that, I believe I have a very powerful mind, and I hate it when people say, well, you know what, you need to be positive, or what's even worse, you need to go work out. Motherfuckers, like I've been working out for 31 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, how's that gonna help us, Lee? You know what I'm saying? So like, stuff like that, or get sunlight. It's like, that doesn't fucking help. We're outside, man. Like we're always outside, we're always working. So it's been kind of hard to pinpoint it. Like Lee, what happens is it compounds. So it could be something small, and we let it compound. So like if you pull out a compound interest, a compound calculator, you know, you put 100,000, 10% interest, you have 110 at the end of the year. And then 10% on that compounds to 10 more percent on 110. So it keeps going. So like what Lee mentioned earlier about, you know, it hitting you at one point, that's exactly what happened. So I don't walk around all day being depressed, you know, or it could be, you know, not even for weeks at a time, but when it does hit, it does hit. And it's not about achievement because, you know, winning the USA is, being up, you know, doing this and doing that. No, by the way, Lee, you are one of my inspirations. So I just want to let you know that ahead of time.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, mine, but I did.
I remember. Yeah, I remember being 180 pounds, and somebody telling me, "Yo, you look big." I'm like, "No, I want to be 250." And they're like, "That's impossible. You're 5'5". I'm like, "Wait a minute, Lee Priest is like 280. What are you talking about, man? I want to be fucking 280 eventually." They're
like, "Yeah, but he's a fat pig. Look at him now. Look at him."
Yeah. We were good. We were good at that height and weight. So yeah, I mean that's my experience with depression. But you know, it gets bad because I don't leave the house sometimes for like 3 or 4 days. You know, I don't let it stop me from doing anything. You know, I run my businesses. You know, I stay on top of my stuff. But it's kind of hard to pinpoint, and it's not sadness. Like people believe it's sadness. It's not sadness. It's like an empty, hollow feeling.
Interesting.
We could endure a lot. You know?
Wait, you cut off. You said empty, hollow feeling, and then you cut off.
No, we could endure a lot as human beings as long as we see an end to it. You know, exactly. If there's an end to it, we could do whatever we can to get to the end. But sometimes when you suffer from depression, there is no end. It's like a black hole.
But that's how I feel too. It's like I never sadness or that. It's like even like yesterday was 6 years since I had the car accident that pretty much stopped my competing career and that. So for 6 years, I've been going to the gym, and for the last 5, I couldn't get a pump on this side. I'd be training, and it'd be like I'd go to do chest, like I was strong this side, weak that side. So like I said, I wouldn't get depressed. I just get more anger because it's like wanting to do stuff I couldn't do, or having the bodybuilding career where after I just won the universe in 2014, I took the year off just to promote NABA. 2015, I was getting ready for the Worlds when I had the car accident. And then to go through years and years of lawyers and doctors and have these lawyers say, "You're lying, your neck's okay." I'm like, how can I be lying? This arm's atrophied 3 inches smaller than this side. Half my chest has disappeared. And just like I said, to always be truthful and have someone call you a liar. I was just getting angry, and then I'd go to the gym and try and train. And then they're like, "Oh, aren't you Lee Priest?" And my answer was, "Oh, I used to be." It's like I'd start talking myself down because it's like, "Oh, yeah." And then people would watch me at the gym. I'd wear T-shirts down like this. And they're like, "Oh, you've got the greatest arms." I'm like, greatest arm. I have. It's like, so I said, I'd get more angry than anything. And then those days I said, I just get so pissed off. It's like, oh, I just don't want to be here. It's just like more frustrated than anything. And then it's like, it's just, like you said, it is depression. But with me, it was a cross between the depression and then this build up anger of just, I don't know. Like I said, people say, would I ever make a comeback? And I'm like, it's hard to say. If I look like I did, maybe. But, you know, if you're like your career's ended, but it didn't end on my terms. It's like if I ended, I would have liked to said, okay, the universe, I made that comeback, won it. I'm happy to walk away now. But I was planning on the Worlds and hopefully to win the Worlds. And then I could have been like, oh, then maybe I might try a Masters or something and then call it quits. But, you know, when it's just cut like that, and then, like I said, to have these doctors and lawyers go, "You're fine, you're this, you're that." It's like I said, 6 years yesterday since the accident, and I'm still fighting them in lawyers and courts and shit and doctors. It's just like so frustrating. It's just, so that'll, like I said, it'll not actually get me down, but it just makes me more, because I said, you'll go to the gym and you try and do stuff you used to do. And it's like, let me try this exercise. No, can't do that one. Let me try this exercise. No, can't do that one. I'm like, Jesus, the women are doing more than me over there. I'm just going to go over here and ride the bike. It's like, it's more of a frustration sometimes.
Yeah, Leo, he hit it spot on. Like, I can't say I'm depressed because I don't look the way I used to anymore. Because before, you know, I started bodybuilding at 16, and then at 26 is when I really started bodybuilding, you know, putting the supplements in my body and everything. But I don't know if Lee feels that way, but I've talked to a lot of other bodybuilders that have retired, and I think, you know, I think bodybuilding itself could be a cause of depression, just because, you know, mentally we see ourselves still that big, you know, and you know, it's a big mind fuck. It's a big fucking mind fuck to go to the gym and, you know, us benching 400 pounds for reps and now we can't even bench 225. You know, it's a fucking mind fuck.
It's funny you say that because I've been trying to get back into squats lately. And I remember when I used to do 6-7 plates, the bar was bending. And you know what it's like, if you haven't done squats for a long time, you get out of that rhythm. Everything feels awkward. Get my arms back, going down to stabilize the muscles that's shaking. I got like 2 plates on. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm like, I used to curl 2 plates. And as I come
Those
up,
are fly W levels.
yeah. As I come up, I look on the mirror, and up on the mirror it says, "Have you hit your personal best today?" I'm like, dust. And I just put it back in the rack and walk away. I said, "Personal best? Oh fuck, I'll never get there." So it's like, it's like I said, I never too worried about how I used to look, but it's funny. I always make jokes because people go, "Oh, Lee, we love your videos. Your videos inspire me to train." And I always say to them, "They inspire you." I said, "Fuck, they depress me because a motivational video will come on." You know, those guys do those videos like those motivational ones where it's just like you. Yeah, those type. Yeah. I'm like, wow. Sometimes I think I'm watching an obituary. I'm like, fuck, did I die and I don't know about it? It's like someone's, this is like what I'll be watching at my funeral. And people are like, yeah, they send it to me. Lee, this one inspires me. So I sit there watching it going, oh, I remember that. I remember winning the Ironman there. Then I walk away going, oh.
Actually, this is, for the audience that doesn't know, this is a subject that's studied extensively in academic literature. It's athletes' depression after their decline. And I didn't know much about it myself. And obviously, I was never a great athlete. But I mean, it was a big part of my life. When I started reaching to the age of 29 or so, I started to realize something mentally. I'm not that great now, and I'm never going to become great now because I've almost hit 30. So if I'm bent over rowing 405 or whatever numbers I'm doing now, they're going to go up by 20% or 30%, not much more than that in my lifetime, never, no matter what. So it's only going to go really downhill for me. So I knew I have to focus on something that I could at least build toward. Because if you don't see, one thing I noticed is that if you don't see your life going somewhere, there's something in us, all humans, whether we like it or not, even if you know in your mind, you don't need to go anywhere, you're fine. But if you don't see yourself going somewhere, it's like an itch inside you will build up that will just tell you something's wrong in your body. Like the same kind of...
It's funny you say that because I've always believed that we're put here on this earth to do stuff, accomplish stuff. And as long as you keep learning or keep doing things, you'll keep living. And I just had this feeling like almost a month ago where I'm like, what is there for me to do? I've done acting. I've done this. I've been in movies and TV shows. I've done bodybuilding. I've done the car racing. And I'm thinking in my mind, fuck, Lee, find us something else or you're going to die. If like God says, your time's up, you've done everything you come to do, I'm taking you home. If there's like a God or whatever, or wherever you go, some spiritual place, I'm thinking, come on, Lee, find something. What else? You're not finished here yet. Because I always figure why we're here, we're put here to either teach things or learn new things or just keep moving forward and develop. And as you said, when you get that point in your brain where it's almost like, you know what, I'm satisfied with what I've done. I'm happy to go anytime. I think if you start thinking that way, I'm ready to go now, something might happen and you might actually go. I take it back to when my auntie, she found out she had cancer. I mean, my auntie was like, if you saw her every day laughing, happy. I mean, she smoked all the time, yes, but she didn't even know she had cancer. She had like a little pain. But even then, she's like laughing. I mean, like happiest person on earth. She went to the doctor. Doctor told her that day, you have cancer. She came home, never laughed again. I said, what's wrong? She goes, oh, I got cancer. I'm going to die. And that's how she thought. So I was like, I saw this person who was so vibrant and happy. Once the doctor said you've got cancer, 3.5 months later, she was dead. I mean, to go that quick, it was almost like her brain just said, time's up, you're going, nothing to live for. And she just went downhill. So I thought to myself, I wonder if the doctor never told her she had cancer and she just kept on going as her happy self, would she have went so fast? Because I figure it's almost like, you know, some people have that drive to fight on and push through it. And some people, when they do get bad news, just give up. And they seem to deteriorate quicker, where it's just that mind over matter, positive thinking type thing that sets things off in the body.
So we're talking about 3 different things. One is like going somewhere with your life being important. Number 2 is having meaning in your life, which is what you touched on earlier, Lee. If you have a why, you can go through any how. And then the third one you're talking about is never giving up, having to do with ending your life. I mean, dying by natural causes, which I also agree with you, by the way. I always notice that also. And I think it has to do something with the stress responses in the brain. Or maybe there's even something deeper than that, where your body's literally, who knows?
Well, you sometimes hear people always say, when like some doctors are talking, they always say stress is one of the biggest killers. So it must, I guess it must set off some chemicals in the body that produce.
Stress is particularly related to pancreatic cancer, which Steve Jobs died from, in the way of adrenaline, by the way. Adrenaline is very associated with pancreatic cancers. Yes, stress kills via cortisol and adrenaline, and the resulting changes in our immune dysfunction and so on, and that's a very real thing. There's many other things you brought up, though. One is this idea of bottling up and exploding. Does that happen because... So it used to happen to me sometimes when I was in phases of my life that because of the molecules I was taking, specifically marijuana, it used to make me a very nice person, very chilled out and not really myself naturally. I'm naturally aggressive and straightforward. And when I was smoking marijuana, I was like a hippie young guy for a while. I used to be very nice to people all the time, and they used to wrong me all the time, and I let it go and let it go, and months would go by, and this would accumulate in me, and I would feel like crap, but I would be nice to everybody else. Is that sort of what happens, where it's
exactly, but without the I'm just
without the marijuana?
Because I told you I spoke about my grandfather before. He raised me to be this polite, there's bad people in the world, but don't come down to their level. You be whatever. So yeah, people would shit on me, and I'd just go, oh fuck, they did it again. But then I'd give them another chance. They'd probably shit on me again. I'm like, and I didn't say who it was with, an ex-wife or my mother or. Even Rachel now said a couple of months ago, I'm like, fuck that person. I'm going to be a fucking arsehole. She just laughs. She goes, you can't do it. She goes, you're too much of a nice guy. I said, no, I'm going to be a fucking arsehole. But then if they were to call up and say, Lee, I need this, I'd be like, okay, I'll do it for you. But it's just like, because I think you either got it in you or you don't. Like, sure enough, I can get to a point where if you hurt my family or come after them, I'd get angry. But for me, just to be that type of arsehole, I think you either got it or you don't. I think it's almost like, when you see someone who is at a pub and he's drinking, you get those guys who can drink and they'll tell jokes and be happy and whatever. Then you get the other guys that drink and they're just like, I'll fucking kill that bastard. I want to fight someone. It's like, it must just be that whether it's hormonal or
not
makeup.
Surprisingly, it's not. Huh? I've been through that. So I used to, when I was first drinking for the first couple of years, I was always this happy drunk. Everybody knew me as this jolly, happy guy. When I got too used to it, something happened in my brain chemistry where sometimes, some nights, I would drink, and at a certain point, you couldn't predict when it would happen. I would get angry. And it was very scary for myself and others around me. But I couldn't predict it, and it didn't start like that. Something changed physically in my brain. And it doesn't happen anymore. So I haven't drank for a long time, and now when I drink, it's very rare. And now when I do it, it won't happen ever. It hasn't happened in like 5 years or 6 years. But it happens. So there's some neurochemistry. I don't totally understand what they are. But the second thing you mentioned, Lee, I've been through that also myself, and I think you also can change that. So when I was in when I was younger, I was a normal kid, but I went through some trauma, and then in 7th grade, I was bullied, and I wouldn't respond. I would be a nice person always, and I was like a nerd in class, and I wouldn't respond. This happened in 8th grade too. I was bullied again, and then in 9th grade, the 12th graders bullied me. They were like 4 years older than me. So at some point, I did exactly what you described, this blowing up thing. But my blow up was very organized. Like I created a group around me, and I went and beat up all the 12th graders, or like hunted them, like try to find them outside school, and did all of that. So it then changed my personality for life. That experience of trying to stand up to those bullies in high school forcefully, I didn't want to. I was scared, but I didn't want to be weak. I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to put up with all this crap. Once, and what really got to me is once in 7th grade, some kid I was small for my age, and this kid was like 6'2" in like 7th grade or whatever. It's an American kid, and he grabbed me by my neck and lifted me off the ground and strangled me in front of all of the girls and all the boys of the grade. So just embarrassing. I could have fought back, but I wasn't taught that. I wasn't taught like just fight until you lose. I didn't know that. So I thought I'm just going to lose. I can't do anything. So that really got to me. And I said, I'm never going to let this happen again. Or if somebody ever do that again, I'm going to catch them afterwards. So then I kept doing that for years. It totally changed my personality. So now you can see even like when Fuad upset Nick, I chased this guy around YouTube, for no reason. It changed my personality. Before, naturally, I'm not like that. Naturally, I try to think of the other person. But anyway, it's just interesting subject. You mentioned so many others, though. One was about suicide. So I've never felt that feeling myself. Like my mother's has suicide scars, and I have two relatives that committed suicide successfully, but close relatives. But myself, the feeling I get is a kind of self-hatred, like just a disgust. It doesn't happen to me now, right now, by the way, just for the audience to know. I'm just saying in my lifetime, what I've experienced was like kind of intense self-hatred. Like irksomeness, hating myself, but never for me, it was never, I want to end my life. I would rather like kill myself slowly by having fun or something. So like my path would go like, oh, I'll go drink 30 beers today or something like that. Or I'll go book a flight somewhere. I'll spend all my money, whatever. I would do the self-destructive mechanisms to remove some of the feelings of self-hatred that I had that time. You know what I mean? But I don't know why I never went to that other level. Fakhri, did you ever feel that feeling of the self-hatred and then of that other level?
Not self-hatred. Not at all. Not at all. As far as suicide, you know, I'm a thinker, right? So my whole thought about suicide is what happens when you die. You know, so I think that thinking has stopped me from actually thinking about suicide, right? Because like what happens when you pass away? Do you go to heaven? Do you go to hell? Do you go to purgatory? Does your soul end? You know, that one. And then the second one is, you know, of course, my family and my friends, because
your Puerto Rican side came out with a purgatory there.
No,
Catholic purgatory jumped in the situation.
You've been in Arabic. So, yeah, man. So then, and the second one was my family, because, you know, I'm the hierarchy of my family, like, you know, and my friends, like I'm the one that's there. So, you know, what happens to my friends and family? Now, what I could tell you, Leo, and I've really never told it to anybody, when I was in Florida, things were going really bad for me, you know, and you know, I went to Florida to start a business, and I ended up turning back into like a 23-year-old Fakhri, you know what I'm saying? I'm 43, 44. So I started partying, hanging out, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on with my life. You know, I guess I was finding that as an escape. You know, Florida, guns are legal, right? So I had my little arsenal, like literally an arsenal. Like I would go and buy a gun like every single week. And, you know, one day I was feeling like really down, and I was, you know, I had my guns and I was getting them to go to the shooting range. And my 9mm was literally, my Glock was literally full, you know, so just playing around, like I had it facing me, and I said, fuck it. And I pressed the trigger, and nothing came out. Right. So I looked at it. I said, all right. I said, let me put this down, and I'm gonna go to the shooting range tomorrow. So I get to the shooting range. I didn't touch the gun. It went back into the case, and I opened up the case when I got to the shooting range. Took out the gun, and I unloaded every bullet from that clip. So the gun was not locked. The gun was brand new, so it couldn't, you know, malfunction. So I'm not sure if that was God's intervention, you know, because I know what I did, and then I know how the gun let off the next day, you know. But that was the only time. I'm not sure if that counts as attempting suicide or just, you know, in a state of not feeling, you know, state of feeling hopeless at that time. Because I was like, you know, what the fuck am I doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to get back to New York to take care of, you know, my family and get my business back in order, and, you know, stop partying like a jerk, you know, because again, you know, it goes back to, you know, we're people that are very goal orientated. So we've always had a goal, right? So like when we were young, we had a goal to become successful as we got older. You know, and then we got into bodybuilding, and then, you know, bodybuilding was like literally, it was everything for us. You know, even though we had other things, bodybuilding was literally everything. We ate 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. We trained every single day. And no matter how we felt, you know, we went to the gym 4, 5, 6 times a week, you know, 5, 6 times a week. You know, so that was always our escape. So, and it wasn't just escape from eating and from training, but if you think about it, you get up in the morning, you eat breakfast, right? Now you have to get ready for your meal in 2 hours. And then you might wait an hour, go to the gym. And then you have to have your post-workout shake. And then 2 hours later, you have your next meal, you know, and then 2 hours later, you have your other meal. So you're always in a constant, you know, schedule. So you don't have time to really think about what's going on in your life. And I think once that went away, you know, and well, I stopped competing very early. And I put my focus more into business, but I was still bodybuilding to the age of 44. And I think once that discipline went away, you know, that gave me more time in my hands. And now, you know, I've worked hard to get to this point where, you know, I'm not retired, but I have the freedom that I need. And that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing, because sometimes when you have too much freedom and you used to be goal orientated, you have too much time in your hands. You know what I'm saying?
I had that. So it happened to me when I was 24. When I first quit private equity, I didn't work for 2 years. At all. I said I was a gentleman of leisure and I was retired, and I moved to Los Angeles and I had a little sum of money and I just lived off it. And that was messed up because I went into hedonistic lifestyle and you don't have any path. But you commented, Fakhri, on something major, which is this. It's so interesting how you said even during the day you don't even have a chance to really think, because you've got a next semi-goal. You've got these semi-goals the whole time, and then suddenly not only is your whole goal of winning competitions gone, but even the daily schedule doesn't really need to be there. You know it doesn't really need to. And in fact, it may be unhealthy too. You might think that too. Like, oh, do I need all this protein? Do I need to eat 5 meals a day? So you've lost your whole structure of your day that you used to for 20 years. Lee, do you feel that too, or do you still keep that structure?
No, I keep the structure. I keep the structure as much as I'll still get up at a time, go and train, either take my wife to work. But then once I've done that, it could be 9 a.m. because I'll get up at 4. So by 9 a.m., I'm like, okay, I'll go home and do some laundry. I do the laundry. Now I'll vacuum the house again. Okay. Now what will I do? Oh, I guess I could go do cardio. I don't really need to do cardio. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, and like, this is how it was. Just to fill in time, I said to my wife, you know what, I'm just going to get a little job because I like talking to people. And, you know, I'm around Newcastle here, they've got beaches and there's nice, like the streets are nice. I said, I see these parking inspectors, you know, the ones that walk around and hand out tickets if you're parking illegally. I said, that'd be a good job for me. I get cardio in, I can walk around, talk to people, get extra money on the side just for us to do whatever with. So I fill out all the applications and I get denied. And as I'm in town, I'm like, I see these parking cops walking around. Some are obese, some are like, I'm thinking, how the fuck did they get a job? I'm a fucking national treasure and I can't even get a fucking job.
National treasure.
They should have been jumping at the chance to have Mr. Universe handing out parking tickets. Come on. Yeah, so because I've always been looking for stuff to do like that. I'm like, what else could I do? It's like, and my wife said, oh, sometimes where she works at this, it's like a tobacco store, gift shop, and then she goes, oh, I could put you on here part-time and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't really want to. I prefer jobs that are outside because I love being outside. That's why sometimes even when I'm out walking, I see these people that maintain like the public parks where they do the mowing and the gardening, because I like that sort of stuff. As long as I'm outdoors, I love it. I just love being outdoors. It just sort of, I don't know, it feels like you're alive. Rather, like I said, if you sit inside too much, you think too much, you get depressed. I watch TV. I'm like, oh, this is fucking depressing even more. So, and then I don't know if you're like me, but you'll sit there and I'll just start watching this, and then 6 episodes, and I'm like, I've sat here and watched 6 fucking episodes of this TV show and I've done fucking nothing. What a fucking loser. And then I'll click over and I'll have some newscaster outside. Yeah, we're recording down here from the beach. I'm like, look at all those people out at the beach enjoying themselves. I'm inside. What a fucking loser I am. So it's like I start comparing myself to other people. I'm thinking, Lee, just get up and go do something. So, well, at the moment I'm working on, I got to fly up to Queensland tomorrow. I'm working on this website I'm going to do for like training and diets and stuff. So it puts my focus onto that type of thing. We'll have like different programs for different people. If you want to be bodybuilder, general businessman who's got certain time, you know, one of those type of things where it work out your calories and what you need. So I got to go see the guy, but I'm flying up there. But even then I'm thinking, because I love driving and I've got the nice new Mustang, it's a 6-hour drive, or by the time I get to the airport an hour early, you got to wait an hour and a half flight. I'm still deciding, even though I've got a ticket to fly up, which would be quicker, oh, Lee, just take the 6-hour drive, because I love driving up through the country and along the coast. So I'm like, yeah, but then I start thinking to myself, this is how I was thinking today when I was cleaning the car, just in case I drive. You're lucky, you'll be driving along the road and the fucking semi-trailer will go fucking smash straight into you. and go, you should have flew up, you bastard.
Okay, so you brought up so many interesting subjects. So the last one you brought up, the self-talk, negative self-talk. So that's something that Fakhri brought up earlier, the compounding rumination. He was saying these ideas that happen to you, they compound in your head, keep coming. You didn't go through it all, Fakhri, but I think that you were saying that these thoughts that come back in the back of your head when you're not really paying attention, maybe when you look out the window, when you're driving, some negative thought that reoccurs, right? So this thing, by the way, I've found, like, obviously meditation and stuff is supposed to be able to help you control those thoughts, but I've never had success personally with just doing that without, basically, this is the way I feel about it, honestly, is, well, Fakhri mentioned something earlier when people say just be positive, or just, they try to will yourself into happiness, or go outside, or that doesn't work if your brain is not working. Like, it's a physical chemical thing. So I've had a feeling before where I had what they call anhedonia, which is no happiness. You can't smile. If someone tells you a joke, there's no way you could fake the smile. And if you fake it, your eyes won't show it. So, right? That's called anhedonia. So if you have that, you can will whatever the hell you want to will. You could go to Paris, you can go whatever party. You won't be having a great time unless you take drugs, which will change the chemistry of your brain. Like if you take alcohol or something else, you might for a few minutes be happy afterwards. So that's one thing you guys mentioned. But also I wanted to mention, so Lee, you were saying like this trip you're taking, you thought of taking a car ride, and because the car ride would be enjoyable for you and it would add somewhat to your overall happiness. I tried that a lot in my life, to collect subjective experiences that would somehow, I like this, so if I do this, I'm going to be happier overall. And it never worked that way. I was happier while I'm on the horse or while I'm climbing this mountain or whatever. But once I'm back off it, unless I'm doing it every single day, it's back to normal. That thing didn't change anything, right?
And plus, too, I'd be like, because it's a 6-hour drive and I love driving, I said I see the country, I leave early, you see the sun coming up, it's nice cruising along, listening to your music. But then when I get there and I do the business part for 2 days, then I get angry at myself because this has happened. I'm like, fuck, I got to drive all the way home. Why didn't I fly? I would have been home in an hour. So I love driving there. But then when I think I got to go back, it's like when I used to do cardio when I was younger. I'd go on a 20K bike ride into Newcastle over the hills, have a great day, get in there and have lunch. And then I'd think to myself, oh, shit, now I've got to ride 20 Ks home. It's always the going there. Then the other return thing, we're like, oh, now I've got to go home and drive home. So that would throw me off. But yeah, it's more like I said, it's not like I said, little things will build up, but then it's also too where things will be like originally when I was going to move home, people say I gave up competing because I was suspended, but I actually gave up competing because my grandfather, who pretty much raised me, was like a father to me. We always trained together. He would do cardio with me on rainy days. I'd be laying in bed at 5 a.m. It'd be pouring down rain. I said, I get to sleep in. There'd be on the window, and I'd look out and go, you silly old bastard. And he'd be in his 60s. I'm like, well, if he's out riding, I got to get up and go with him. I can't have him show me up. So in 2008, when I was moving home, he was going to come live with me because my grandmother had just passed away. He was going to come live with me, and we're going to get ready for a show together again. He was just going to come to the gym because he wasn't training that much anymore and just spot me and do the cardio and that. But then he went into hospital to get a skin cancer cut off his neck. It was like, not like a bad melanoma one, but even the doctor said, he was like in his 80s. He goes, he probably would have died of old age before that type of cancer did anything. But being Mr. Healthy, he's, oh, no, I'll get it removed. So he goes in to get it removed. It's just meant to be a day surgery. They put you under, remove it, you go home that night. They put him under, but when he was under, he had oxygen. The nurse turned his oxygen off and he had a heart attack. But they brought him back. From that. They put him in the room to recover. The same nurse turned his oxygen off again, so he had another heart attack. So from that point on, they pretty much couldn't save him. So he was there for 2 weeks. I got home just in time for the funeral from America. But they said, like in Australia, we don't have malpractice, so you can't sue hospitals, doctors or anything. So my mum got a letter from the hospital saying, we regret what happened to your father, blah, blah, blah. But since then, now we've put into practice these type of measures so that happens to nobody else. I'm like, that's the fucking thank you letter you get for someone. Geez. So it's like he wouldn't have, it wasn't his time to go, but just due to some unfortunate accident. And that hit me hard. That's why when I'd get ready for contests, I just couldn't get ready because I'd start thinking about him. I'd be like, no, not this year. Not
That's
next
actually one of
year.
the questions, Lee, that they were asking us. How did you ever end up getting over your grandfather's passing? The
It
audience
took
wanted to
a
ask you.
long time. It took a long time because even now I get a bit teared up talking about it.
No, I saw,
I think after it was like I'd start to get ready, but then I'd be like, oh, he's not with me. But then I'm thinking, no, he is with me. No, he's not. So it wasn't until probably, I don't know, something just happened in 2013. I said, something just clicked. I said, I'm going to do the universe. Okay, I'm going to do it. And I was just pretending I was talking to him. And my grandfather told the story once a long time ago that we have the Kookaburra bird in Australia. It makes the weirdest, stupid noise, like, and he'd always do that around the house. And my grandmother would say, shut up, Owen, you're a bloody idiot. But he'd walk up behind my grandmother. She'd be like, oh, Owen, stop fucking doing it. Like, so, but this is how I don't know if I believe in things or whatever, but the days I'd be out walking, I'd be like, oh, fucking hell, Lee, you said you're going to do the universe, you have to do it. And nearly every day when I had that down moment, those Kookaburra birds would start going off. And I'm thinking, are they always doing that? Or is it just that I'm noticing them now because I'm feeling a bit down? So every time I had those moments where I'm like, fuck the universe, Lee, you can't do it, I'd hear those Kookaburra birds. I'm like, oh, okay, grandfather, I'll keep going. So, yeah, then I went on to win the universe. But, yeah, it took me from 2008 to 2013 to get back into it, because I was always just too upset to get ready for a show again.
Fascinating. This is, I recently also lost my great-grandpa, who wasn't as close to me, but through a similar experience in anesthesia. But there was no malpractice. But you know how dangerous anesthesia is? They don't tell anybody. Nobody has any idea that tons of people, in my great-grandfather's case, they put him under anesthesia and he basically lost his memory the next day. Like, that was it. He was 96, completely there, and then the next day, that's it. And he was never there again.
But I think with the nurse too, because she didn't see the results, because when my grandfather was younger, like he went to the war and that, but then when he moved back and here to Australia and he worked in one of those places like a brickworks place, that there was lots of, back in those days, the dust and that. So he had a lot of that in his lungs, and the doctors knew on the x-rays he had a lot of build-up in his lungs. So while he's out, he would need the oxygen, but she didn't know. And even when the other doctors saw the x-ray, they go, like, they should never have even turned his oxygen off ever when he's under with like his lungs, that capacity type thing like that. So, yeah, but then as they said, they brought him back. But even here he is now, my mother, he'd always recite that love is patience, love is kind, or something.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that one.
Yeah, he always had that in the house, and he recited that. And because my mum was angry at the nurse, and even he's like, no, they finally, this is the type of person he was, though, but it annoys me because back then they didn't have many of those oxygen machines, like the ones that they needed for COVID and those respirator type things. Well, my grandfather was on one. Some young kid needed it. He said, give it to him. So they gave the oxygen to him, and he was telling my mum, don't be angry. Just he needs it. Yeah, then he just, they pretty much just couldn't save him and just kept giving him morphine and stopped feeding him for 2 weeks, and he passed away. And I put my Olympia medals in his coffin, and that was it.
God rest his soul. What a beautiful message.
But even then he said, don't be angry with the nurse. It wasn't her fault. So, like I said, he would find the good in everyone. So even in that, he's telling my mum, don't be angry with the nurse. It's not her fault. So,
hero.
What are you saying, Fakhri?
I said he's a hero, man.
Yeah.
That's the definition of an hero, saving somebody else's life.
Yeah, it's like I said, he's always that way. Like I said, he'll give it a shirt off his back, never had a bad word to say about anyone. I think I told Lee a story at the time we'd walk to the grocery store. My grandmother would be mad by the time we get home because we'd go to the grocery store, but coming home, he talked to everybody. And my grandfather, if you went slow and he stuck his head in the car window, you'd be stuck there for an hour talking to him. So it's like we went to the grocery store, we'd have like 5-6 bags of groceries walking home. My grandmother says, now, don't forget this, don't forget the mincemeat, don't forget this. We get home, we'd have one bag left. And she's like, Owen, where's this, where's that? Oh, the family down the road needed some bread. So by the time we walked home, he's just giving food to the people that need it. So
I was going to say, the way you talk about your grandfather is similar to how my father talks about his mother. And it's very, because I've never had a person who died that was very kind to me or very, so I never had that kind of respect. But my grandmother was, but I didn't know her well. But my father used to say the same thing. Like people would come and ask her for they would be poor and they would ask for money and she would have none, but she would give them her money and then she would go broke. Because my grandfather wasn't sending her money, but nobody knew. She would just be broke and giving people money and borrowing to pay for you know.
Yeah. My grandfather would always buy the scratches and the lotto, hoping he was going to win. I said, "Oh, we're broke again." He'd always say, "We're never broke." He goes, "We're rich on love." So I'd say to him, I'll look at him and go, "Well, love won't pay that fucking electricity bill." He goes, it'll get paid. It'll get paid off, but don't worry about it. Yeah, that's what he's saying. He goes, "We're rich in love," and he goes, "Money can't buy that." So
yeah, I really feel that way very strongly also. Look, there's a couple of more things. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about on this subject, but there's some things I don't want to forget that Fakhri mentioned. Like, Fakhri mentioned the limitations of a psychologist. Like going to, especially if you're educated like you are, but even if you're not, even if you're just an intelligent person, when you're going to just a psychologist and not a psychiatrist, well, you go to a psychiatrist because you want medications, basically. You go to a psychologist, basically he's a psychiatrist without the medication prescription ability, and he's a guy who just talks to you. Really, he's sort of like a philosopher. And it just depends on how good the philosopher that you're meeting is. I mean, how many great philosophers are there in the world? I don't think there are more than 100. It's very unlikely you're going to meet one that's going to just be a life-changing person. If there is, that might be life-changing, but it also may put you in a position. I see this a lot, unfortunately, with women usually. They'll go to like a counselor who will be herself, usually, often I'm just assuming it's a lady, but it could be a guy, will be himself just a normal guy who will give them advice about their life, like about their job, about their relationships, about advice that's not correct. It's not great advice, you know, and the other person will just listen to it. Now, by the way, this actually works to heal some people's problems.
Today that's called Facebook, isn't it?
That's true as well. But also in AA, I don't know if you notice in AA, they have a sponsor-sponsee relationship where they have blind faith. Even though the sponsor isn't necessarily right, the idea is to take the decision-making out of the other person's control. But that's one thing he mentioned. And then another thing, you know, Fakhri, you said you didn't notice much depression from your childhood. I didn't either myself at all. Actually, now looking back, I realized I must have been depressed when I was 10 because I have very low energy and stuff. But I didn't notice. I never thought I was depressed or anything. But what we do see from scientific research is a consistent two things. One is people who had violence or crazy stuff going on in their childhood tend to have smaller hippocampuses for the rest of their life, which is the memory center of the brain, which is the place that's most affected by neurotrophic factors, which I think means that they have less neurotrophic factors for the rest of their life. Probably. And the second thing is they have a persistent upregulation of the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is adrenal axis, which is the stress center. So people who tend to have childhood trauma tend to act sort of like people who went to Vietnam later in life, where they have a little bit of PTSD, a little bit of that reactivity, a little bit of that not feeling at peace inside. There's just that something's not quite right. And then also you're hypervigilant because you're ready for anything, actually, to some degree. Like you might not be as ready as you were before, but to some degree you're ready. You know what I mean? So like...
I think PTSD is a real thing in people that suffer from depression, because it is PTSD, right? So when you come back from the army, you have some type of, you know, war, you have some type of trauma that happened in your life. It's the same concept. It's just, you know, the trauma might not be war, the trauma might not be getting shot at, shooting at people. It's trauma, and then when you can't understand it makes it even worse, you know. And as far as the psychiatrist and stuff like that, I think it works for a lot of people, because for the most part, you know, most people allow others to tell them what to do. You know, most people allow others to say, you know what, this is all right as long as you do this. You know, go to school, go to college, get a job. That's normality. You know, I have a job and I hate it. You know what? Everybody hates their job. It's just something you have to do for 40 years and retire, right? So a lot of people allow other people to tell them how to live their lives, even if they believe they're strong and they have a strong personality and they can be educated and have a strong mind. But it's normal. It's just the population. Most of the population allows other people to tell them what to do. You have a boss, he tells you what to do. You know, you have a teacher. He tells you, like, you know, when I was in school, like I was a pain in the ass with my teachers. Like they would read shit. I'm like, that's not right. That history is not right. What are you talking about? That history is not right. That's the book. That's the history that you're teaching us. But this is the real history, you know. And I was always like that. I was always not against authority, but I'm a self-thinker, and I like to do research on everything that I have interest in. So that's another problem with therapy is that
it's funny. It's funny you say that. I'm the same. It's like I'd always get kicked out of class. Well, even back to Sunday school, because my dad and that were in the church. And like I said, I never did it, cause trouble, but I like to ask questions. I like to know why or how. So when I was younger, my mother tells me, this is how babies are made, you know, men and women do this. I go off to Sunday school and they're telling me about Mary the Virgin. I'm like, how can she be a virgin? Because my mum said this and that. Get out. And then I just question things like, you know, little things like that. It's like, you can't question the Bible. I said, what do you mean I can't question it? If you're telling me stuff, I'm not denying it. I just want you to explain it to me more so I can.
Well, the problem is you have
understand.
somebody that doesn't understand the answer, actually. So you're asking a question. It's just the exact same situation as Fakhri is talking about.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like this simple.
The psychiatrist, he knows the guy doesn't know better than him.
It'd be like we used to get that book of as a cartoon book. I remember it today. It was like Jonah and the whale. Remember how he got into the whale or big fish, whatever I want. And there used to be a picture of like it showed a whale, but then it was like an X-ray picture, and it showed Jonah sitting inside the whale's belly cooking some fish in there. I'm like, how do you? I'm like, wouldn't he be underwater inside the whale's belly? How does he breathe? Lee, get out. I'm like, I just want to know how he's inside the whale's belly for 3 days underwater. I think
even for kids, that was too far-fetched, honestly. I even thought about that one, the Noah and the whale thing. That one even got to me. I was a kid believing in God happily, but I was like, this is a little ridiculous. This one's a little... Like, why is the guy in the thing? No, also the ark. Like, why did he get one of each? Why not two? Just in case something happened? Or like, you know, I was like, even as a kid, I was like, you know what? You need safety.
He got two, but I used to always wonder too, if the ark's over there, we've got all these land masses, how did the kangaroos get all the way over there, or the koalas? They had to go all the way from Australia. Well, Lee, the land was all bridged. Land was bridged together. There was no oceans dividing it before they all separated. I'm like, why did they follow Moses around the desert for 40 years? Didn't somebody go, hey, it's been 40 years, mate, you don't know where you're going. Should we just wander off and Lee, get out? Like with my mum would always say, there's sort of no grey with you, Lee. It's got to be black or white. It's got to be yes or no. You got to know the thing or what. I said, well, I don't know. That's just the way I was brought up and stuff.
I've heard this 1,000 times. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah. It's like it just,
but aren't you jealous of the young kids nowadays where if a parent actually cares about them, when they ask them a question like, why is the sky blue? Which, by the way, I have no idea why it is. But if my kid asked me that now, I could say...
of the water.
Oh, I don't know, but I could... But you could say, you could say, you could actually either go Google it yourself or tell your kid, limit him on like Wikipedia and say, anytime you ask me this, I'm going to show you how to research it. Because when we were kids, we would ask something, and if they didn't know, that's it. You can't find out. You have one encyclopedia in your house. I mean, the people who understand that there was a book.
Well, my mum, she spent a fortune on Encyclopedia Britannica, where you'd get a volume every month. Yeah. So we had like the 26 of them, so I'd always be reading them. I used to love reading encyclopedias. I thought they were great. It was like knowledgeable and different stuff. You'd look through them all and find out different stuff. And I used to love those type of books. I used to like those books on facts, just weird facts in life about different stuff, you know, just...
Oh, you like my new series then? I'm going to make one called Leo Surfs Wikipedia. I have like 500 saved pages on Wikipedia from years of just reading weird stuff. All kinds of like surprising things. I'm going to start them soon. So hopefully it'll be an uplifting thing. Every few days there'll be a Leo Surfs Wikipedia.
Yeah, because there's like when you read some stuff about things that have happened through history, and just like some of the weirdest facts that, I don't know if they're coincidence too in some different things, but some of these stories, when you look back over time, it's just like weird and interesting. But then I'm always like, I must remember that one to tell someone 10 minutes later. What was that?
You
one
can't
again?
remember those. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, which we could talk about why. But I just want to briefly say for the audience that might want to be looking for some advice on how to tackle depression and anxiety. My kind of depression, by the way, personally, there are different phenotypes of depression. So there's like the one that you mentioned earlier, Lee, when we first started, is called melancholic depression, where people have no energy and they're just laying in bed. You're saying you're not that type. There's that type. Those people sometimes benefit from different kinds of treatments than people who have a depressive phenotype like mine, and maybe like Fakhri's, which involves mainly anxiety also. Fakhri, I don't know if yours is like that also. I think so, right? We talked last time.
I suffer from anxiety and depression. Yeah, I suffer from both of them.
Yeah, so I have that also.
I don't like people. That's why I suffer from anxiety.
And I'm like you also. So sometimes sometimes I won't go like now it's really easy to do with COVID, but even in college, sometimes I wouldn't go out of my apartment for 2 months. I mean, I would go to the grocery store, but I wouldn't talk to anyone. I wouldn't go to college. Even I would skip the classes for 2 months, just attend the exam. You know,
I'm introverted by nature. So it's like this whole COVID thing, staying home is like, I'm an introverted person.
It's nothing,
like,
yeah.
And I'm the same as that because my wife and I, when the COVID hit, it's like it doesn't change our life because if we go out for dinner, we go at like 5 p.m. when there's no one in the restaurant, so we're home by 7. It's like I said, I used to love going to expos because the main thing I liked about that was I hated competing, but I loved meeting the fans, talking to the fans. So when I was there for that, I could do that. But anywhere outside of that, like if you said, Lee, let's go for dinner at 7 o'clock, I'd be like, no, I can't do it. Or I used to do the photo shoots with Chris Lund and some other photographers that say, Lee, come to this gym at this time. Okay, Lee, get your shirt off and do some photos. I look around and go, too many people. I don't want to do it. You got to take your shirt off. I'm like, no, I won't do it. I'll go to a gym where there's nobody. And that's the only time I had my shirt off was for photo shoots. They're like, but you're a bodybuilder. You do it on stage. I said, what other contest you expected to see that in a gym? I want to be normal. I want to be a normal person. I don't want to be looked at, even if we're doing a photo shoot. So photographers would be like, okay, then we'll change gyms or we'll come here tomorrow at a different time. If I wasn't competing or expos, I'm like you, I'd rather just stay home, or if I go somewhere, it's early where there's no one around. If I go to the beach, it'd be down the far end of the beach where there's nobody. Like the crowd's up here, I'll be down the far end. And if I had to walk up this way, put the shirt back on and walk back, I wouldn't. Yeah, people are like, if I look like you, I'd be walking around with no shirt on all the time. It's like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
It's great. My first photo shoot was Chris Lund. I showed up with with a Nike cutoff, Jordan cutoff, Nike or Jordan shorts and Jordan sneakers. But he looks at me, he goes, "Did you bring your clothes?" I was like, oh, "Yeah, I'm dressed. I'm ready to go. I have my muscle, my muscle shirt on and everything." And he goes, "You need to wear this." I'm like, I'm not wearing that shit. I'm not walking around with my butt out in my
exactly
boom shorts. But he made me, man. But yeah, it was always uncomfortable. Even going to the beach, same thing Lee said. Like, I would wear a double, triple X shirt depending on how big I was, and I would put my umbrella, my seat, and I would take off my shirt. And if I had to go get food, it was the same thing.
It's funny. I made my ex-wife. She had 3 younger kids. I made them cry. I felt as bad as anything because we'll go to the beach early. There's like this ocean pool and you get there early, no one's there. We pull up, it's full, people everywhere because during the week we would go, it's not too bad. Weekends full. So I drive in. Oh, too many people. Where are we going, Dad? Because they call me Dad. I said, we're going home. They're crying. Why are we going home? Too many people. I'm not going out there. So I'm making the kids suffer for my insecurity. And then another time I got there and I was playing with the kids, but I hadn't noticed. I was in the water. I'm just laying down up to neck level on my belly in the water. And all of a sudden I turn around. I'm like, shit, where'd all those people come from? They're setting up their little picnic areas. And I'm telling the little girl, I say, can you go up and get Daddy's towel and T-shirt? She's like, what for? I said, just go get Daddy's towel and T-shirt. So she comes up and brings it back and I just come out the water and I put my shirt on because I didn't want to walk back past all the people with my shirt off.
Yeah.
And Jade at the time, my ex-wife's like, you look like that. Why wouldn't you want to be looked at? I said, I don't want to be looked at. I just want to be normal. And then I just, so it's weird. It's weird how you...
But it isn't just for bodybuilders. That's just that's a kind of anxiety also in general. Like I've had that even just general, just the crowds of people. Like I've had anxiety attacks where I had seizures because suddenly I just noticed there's so many people around me, and so I had to escape out of a social environment while having a seizure without letting people notice that I'm having a small seizure because I didn't want it to be embarrassing. And the seizures coming from the anxiety. There would be people have different kind of panic attacks. Some people have seizures. Some people have tremors, or it was like a tremor, extreme tremor.
Yeah, because I'd see those guys like in the gym, or then you see those guys who aren't too big, and I'd be like, I said to my wife, look at that dickhead, because he'd be the skinny guy and he's strutting down the beach like this. He's walking how they think bodybuilders walk. Because a normal bodybuilder, Dorian and then Paul Dillette, there's massive. They just walk normal. Their back's not flared out. But I see this skinny guy and I used to think, fuck, I wished I had his confidence, or I wished I could see what he's seeing, because my God, it's like I'm covered up walking all like trying to blend in, and this skinny guy's got the arms flared out and they're strutting along. I'm like, Wow.
Scott Mendelson used to call me ILS, imaginary lat syndrome, because I used to walk around. Apparently, I didn't know it, but I was doing this thing that you're describing right now.
Yeah. I'm always like, oh, look, that guy forgot to take the coat hanger out of his shirt before he put it on.
Scott used to really get on me for that. Anyway, so listen, I wanted to give some tips though for the listeners, because there are some things I discovered along the way. One is this concept of flourishing, created by a guy called Martin Seligman from Harvard. The idea is this: you find something you love, that you like the process of. This is the opposite of what Fakhri was talking about earlier. That you actually enjoy the process of the job and you enjoy the destination and you work in that, and there's something that happens in people called flourishing while they're doing that, when they start to get in the groove with that thing. And this creates a kind of lasting happiness in people's lives. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Another thing I wanted to mention are now the rest of the things are my opinions, things I learned from trial and error through facing depression and all so on. So one was finding meaning in my life. Like, what do I live for? What's the purpose of my life? I didn't mention another thing. Another one is service, serving others and not living for yourself. So that's the second one. So meaning, service. Third one is direction, having direction in your life. A fourth one is having values that you know what they are, you stick by them, and you will sacrifice for them. Meaning that you will screw up your own career for your values. If you live like that, then you will not be at the mercy of your successes and failures in your career, because you'll always have your head up high because you know who you are. If you don't live like that, then you're at the mercy of your successes and failures. And if luck gives you a bad hand and you don't succeed in your career, you're going to be somebody that doesn't know his values and then was just a failure. That is not meaningful. See?
It's funny how you said that services ones, because like I said before, it's funny how, like, I've done so much and I'm at that point now where it's like, I got to find something else to do or put my energy somewhere else. But while I'm not doing that, at the moment, it's like I'm here for my wife, to do stuff for her, make her happy, my mother. So at the moment, I feel like if they weren't around, I could go any time and I'd be happy with it. But at the moment, I feel like I'm here for them, to help them do things, and I get enjoyment from that. But then when I've helped them, I am sitting at home alone, I'm thinking, Lee, there's got to be something more you can do now. Where can I... And at the moment, I'm just in that stagnant, because I can't train properly. I can't do this.
But that's enough. But Lee, that's enough to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And not only that, but anyone who I've really studied this like to no end. I really believe that anyone who serves himself first and foremost will never be fully happy. If like even businessmen, if their goal is the family's wealth, they'll always be happier if their goal is their own wealth.
See, because I think from my grandfather, I've never, like I said, I've always put other people first. And sometimes it'll annoy me because I'd put other people first, but that brings me enjoyment. It's like even buying stuff. If I was to buy something for myself, I get this real guilt, like, why did you buy that? You could have brought somebody else something. And like me buying something for someone or doing something for somebody else, that brings me like so much joy and feeling of goodness that makes me happy type thing. So that's why I just like enjoy doing things for other people, or how I help the animal shelters and stuff like that, or different things like that. That just brings me joy. Or my wife last week, she says, why are you so happy? I said, I was at the grocery store and there was this old lady behind me. I saw she didn't have much stuff. So I brought one of those, the supermarket store gift cards, and put $100 on it. And I just said to the checkout girl, when that lady comes through, just give it to her to pay for her groceries and stuff like that. And I just walk off. I say, don't say it's from me. Just say the store's got a promotion and you're the 50th next person and you've won this gift. So I like doing stuff like that. Or my grandparents who are so close, if I see older couples out for lunch, I'll go, as I'm leaving, give me their bill, I'll pay their bill. Or if I see one person, I start thinking, that's how my grandfather was once my grandmother passed away, just eating alone. So I'll get their bill and pay for it. But that brings me a lot of joy doing that.
The thing is, this the way you're describing it, that's just a symptom of you having a good soul. But that's not the way to use this to make yourself happy. I also tend to do those things, but also when I'm depressed. So like when I was making a lot of money before, I used to not buy myself gifts. I used to buy my friends gifts all the time, like material gifts. But that didn't make me that, I mean, maybe that made me happy that day. It's like the subjective experience of driving across Australia. It won't have a lasting impact unless you put it regularly in your schedule. So for example, what I did was I started I spent like a time where I was helping low-income children in downtown LA, schooling after school. But I would go twice a week. So I don't have kids. Well, I mean, now soon, hopefully I'll have one. But before I didn't have any kids. So I would be going there with these 4 or 5 year old kids. I was, 27, 28 years old, spent time with them every week. And then also to me, to be honest, my wife, Lucy, added a tremendous amount also for me in my life by being someone that I really love and really, really, really care about, how her welfare is. And therefore, that making me care about my welfare more than I had previously. Me also. And that's sometimes enough to bridge that gap. So it's something to, but just to go through the list quickly. So then the other one I want to mention is spirituality. Now, this isn't a necessary thing, but it's really associated with happiness. If you study it worldwide, religious people tend to be more happy. Spirituality tends to be one of the strongest things.
Let me talk a little bit about religion. So the last therapist I went to, she started telling me you need to find God. God to help you. God exists. Well, Leo, I went to Catholic school from pre-kindergarten to pretty much 12th grade, except for like a year and a half. I went to public school, and I went to Catholic college, St. John's University, for 4 years. I'm not a theology major, but if I could sit down with you, and I know you're very educated, Leo, like we could have a great discussion about religion and God.
We could solve it right now easily. I could get you on the same page as I am, which I know exactly what you're. So basically, are you? Let's shorten it down. Is your feeling that basically you know so much about the dogma of the Catholic religion and the details of the theology that you know that it doesn't make sense, and therefore you have difficulties using and it has also not only do you have difficulties using Catholicism as your point of entry of your contact between you and a higher power, but moreover, your experience with Catholicism colors you for any other relationship you could potentially have with a God. Is that what your feeling is?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, my two best friends are born again Christians, or Christians rather, so they always push the religion on me. I have a couple of friends that are very religious, they're Christians. They're not Catholics. I mean, Christian and Catholic are the same, right? Christ is Christ, but they're more towards the Christian faith, and if it was that easy, man, like, I believe in God. I don't believe that the Bible or any book, is a fundamental reading book. If you look at the apostles, that was written hundreds of years after Jesus Christ died. So those aren't the real apostles, right? So there's a lot of things in the Bible, but just to put my faith in God, it's kind of tough because I do believe in God, but so do a lot of people in this world. I mean, if not hundreds of millions, billions that believe in God. And why do they suffer as much as they do? If they believe in God in a fundamental way, why do they suffer as much as I do? So it's hard for me to think that, God would be the savior of whatever problems I have. Because at the end of the day, Lee described what he's done in the past, and I've described what I've done in the past, and you Leo, have described. And we have a free will to decide what we want to do. So I personally don't think religion is a form of fixed religion. Fixed oppression, at least to myself. I mean, again, it goes back to what I was saying. Like some people are vulnerable to believe what others say, and that's a lot easier.
No, I'm with you. I
wish that's the case.
I'm 100% with you.
I've always said I'm probably more spiritual than religious because I'd have those people that are like, sometimes I wouldn't be envious of them, but the ones that just have so much faith in the Bible, and I mean, like they have this deep faith, and I'd always say to them, look, that's great that you have this faith, but I'd always say that the faith that you have in that Bible, whether it's true or not, or the stories are being rewritten, I said, imagine how much good this world could do and people would be if we had that same faith and love for each other. If you could put that same faith and that feeling you have to another human being that you do that Bible, imagine how much better this place could be.
So let's distinguish, because actually I'm also like you, Fakhri, I'm very interested in theology, and let's distinguish between two aspects. So one is the true believer in religion. That's the guy that Lee's talking about, and Fakhri, that you're saying basically, I'm not able to become a true believer. I can't believe in this thing, that God is watching over me, he's going to make sure nothing happens to me, and so on. Okay, that's one thing. I was really talking about finding a feeling of being connected to the universe, which is a spiritual connection, which is a different thing. But the true believer is actually the one who's the happiest, actually. Yeah. But unfortunately, not many of us can trick ourselves into doing that. Now, I tried, by the way, for years. I tried for at least a year when I was really trying to fix my life. I tried to convince myself to go back in my thinking and become a true believer in the true sense of the word. It's not possible. You can't do it once you've had your eyes opened, right? So then you go, but then this is the thing that I came to the conclusion. Why should I let these people who wrote these books or talk to their societies 1,000, 2,000 years ago control how I'm going to see the universe? Okay, why should Jesus or whoever decide how I am going to see it? Because he's just a guy like me. He grew up like me. He made up his own. I mean, if you're thinking like that, I don't mean to offend anyone listening in the audience. I'm saying if Jesus Christ was a person and not God, then he would have been someone like me. And then therefore, maybe I could think for myself, right? So what I thought is I try to break down the common universal things between a lot of religions. Because one thing that struck me, Fakhri, is this. Why are there no people in the world that ever existed that we found without a religion? Ever. Okay, it's a little weird. So it made me start to think this. My first conclusion was this when I was trying to recover. My first thing was this. Okay, I don't believe in this. God doesn't exist. But it seems that humans were meant to believe that God exists, or that they function better when as a society, they believe in not maybe one God, but in some supernatural powers that they connect with and that they have rituals about. There are certain facets of it. They connect with, that's the spirituality, and they have rituals, and there's something above them that they feel. Okay, so I noticed these things. These things are common to what are called the perennial religions. There's a book by Aldous Huxley called Perennial Philosophy, which started this kind of thought process. And anyway, at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to this. So look, like when we talk about reincarnation, for example, in Buddhism or Hinduism, to me, if you think about it, reincarnation is real because look at it this way. I am not the person I was 10 years ago. In terms of the molecules, the carbon and everything in my body, it's not the same person. I also honestly don't think the same way. Like when I look back when I was 15, it's almost like I'm looking at a young guy and I feel bad for him or something like that. It's a different guy. It's not me. You know what I mean? And it's really not me if you think about it. And I'm not going to be me in 20 years. So the fact that I am me is actually an illusion. I am never actually me. I'm constantly in flux. And I'm actually constantly changing and I'm part of the universe. And what separates me from the universe is actually an illusion in my mind, in my eyes. I'm not really, everything is leaving me and joining me constantly. So what am I exactly, right? So the reincarnation is there. And then the other thing is universalism, this idea that I am one with the universe. There is no difference. I'm not me, Leo. I am God's child. I'm one of the universe. I became whatever I was supposed to become. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm natural, you know what I mean? And not only that, but because I'm one with the universe, I won't swim against the tide of the universe. So if I'm in a river and I sense that the universe is moving this way, I'm not going to swim against that. That to me is like how, maybe I'll get cancer anyway in 2 years, but like that's how like I imagine you would get cancer, right? If you're swimming against, like you feel bad, like I used to feel bad when I was taking steroids sometimes. I just keep doing it. I feel tired, whatever. I keep doing it. That's swimming against the tide. Or for example, I'm working in private equity. I hate my freaking job, hate it every day, but I want that money. Swimming against the tide. I start drinking at night, start partying. I need to do something with the money because I hate my life. Swimming against the tide. So I learned some lessons from the spirituality part. So that's what I'm talking about really is personally, what I do is I pray on my own and I don't pray thinking God's listening. I pray like a deist kind of God, like Thomas Jefferson did. What they also called Spinoza's God, which is a God that maybe he's not listening to you, but he's the architect of the universe. You're praying to God, to the universe's laws. It's an act of respect. It's an act of respect every day and gratitude. You know, I'm part of you. I respect you, and I wish for a great day, and I'm looking forward to. And then you have like sort of a relationship. So when something happens during the day, you feel like, oh, the universe sent me this or that. It's stupid, but it makes you feel like you're connected. And it gives you that. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's
you're getting deep. I got to go have a joint.
Don't worry, I just had one last night. I had one last night. Don't worry. Anyway, so
you know what? That is enough to keep people level-headed. You know, that connection and that belief in that thought is again enough. When you're a free thinker, it's tough to fall into something like that. You know, whatever it is, you know, but some people, yeah, like I said earlier, you know, some people are allowed not you know, I hate to use the word manipulated because it's such a horrible word, but some people are allow themselves to fall into certain categories just because, you know what, they don't have a way out, right? So like, I hate my fucking life. I hate waking up. I hate doing all this shit. Like, my life is fucking horrible. Well, why don't you introduce you to God? Come to church, and then everybody else starts talking to you. You have a good feeling in your heart. You feel a warm feeling. You feel part of something. And that right there is enough to help people, you know, but unfortunately not for all of us.
It's also the feeling like if something's going wrong in my life, if something's really wrong, then it's not supposed to be that way. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just go along with it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Would you say it's like meditation? Because I sort of feel like that. I try and connect with the universe, because there's been many nights my wife would say, I say, I'm just going outside to put this in the bin. I'll be gone for 20 minutes. She's like, what are you doing out there? And this is me. If anyone saw me, I'd be standing outside, my arms out like this, my head up, and I'm just standing there. I'm in this, like, just clear in my head, but I'm picturing every star, every galaxy, all coming together, like all these beams of light coming together. Once they meet, that beam of light then comes down onto my head, and I'm picturing that, like, light going through my body saying, get rid of all the negative energy and take it out through my feet. And then I picture, once it's all gone through, I can, like, picture my body just like glowing this light. But then once it's out of my feet, then I picture all the trees and the things that are planted in the earth bringing different energy back up through my feet. And then I come inside, and I don't know if it's just psychological, but I actually sometimes feel better. It's just like this weird, I'm picturing all this energy.
Yeah, I used to practice that. To feel it coming in and the connectivity. I used to do the exact same thing for months. Yeah. I said,
if my neighbours are watching it, probably thinking he's out there.
Who's that big guy half naked outside?
Look,
standing there like Captain Marvel.
I just wanted to be comprehensive for those that just, for the listeners, the young guys, 18-year-olds or whatever. Also, community. That's another thing Fakhri just mentioned about the religion part. That's a huge part of the religion thing, is having a community. That's really strong. That's maybe stronger than religion in terms of influencing.
Well, even if you don't have, like, religion, when you say community, do you mean, like, even, I know that sometimes before, when I would get down, even if you can just have someone to talk to, like some mates or friends, someone you can talk to, you know, and, you know, guys, we've got to be tough, because like we've said, being in this sport, you're so strong-willed that sometimes when you feel down, you're like, I know I'm stronger than this, because you push yourself through training, you've pushed yourself through this. We have strong minds, so when you feel down, sometimes you do feel like, I should call my friend and talk, but then you think,
no, you don't want to show that weakness. No, you don't want to do that.
I'm going to sound like a little bitch if I call up saying, oh, I got a problem.
Yeah, and just going to make it seem like it's bigger than it is, and then your mate's going to take it too seriously. And it's awkward. Like, how do you, and probably you guys don't talk on the phone all the time anymore. Also, like, girls, see, that's the difference between women and men, is that when they're old, when women are in their 40s, they're still calling each other on the phone. They're talking for 2 hours sometimes on the phone. But tends to be men, once they leave their cohort, like they leave the army or they leave whatever, college or whatever, or in your case, bodybuilding, you're not hanging out with a group of guys all the time. So you don't have that solidarity. And we're actually social animals. We're like wolves. But each of us is like a wolf by himself, totally vulnerable to the world, you know?
You get a message and it's just like, okay. Yes. Whereas women go on and on. Yeah. It's like we're just very...
Like how you responded to my voice notes the other day. You said like 3 times.
My friends hate that, because I'd rather talk to someone. But yeah, I have friends, they'll write me this huge message and I'll be reading it.
No, I sent you voice notes. You just didn't send a voice note back.
No, I sent you some things back. I asked you some questions.
Yeah, you did. I didn't get back to you.
See, thank you. But my friends will write these big things and I'll be reading it and reading it and reading it. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, that's it. That's it. It's like, they said, don't write too much, Lee. It's like, I said, okay. It's like,
I think this was a really good discussion and very helpful for people. We actually had a few questions, but I'm a bit, I think it's been an hour and a half and all of us are a bit tired, but maybe we'll have another one sometime in a month or something like that. We can talk again and take some more.
I think the main thing is, if guys just don't feel like you're alone, because men go through it, and if you got to talk to someone, that's fine. Talk to someone. Or I always found too, sometimes now there are little things, if not to the point where I want to kill myself, but if I do start feeling that way, I'll feel stuff coming on. I try and catch it early and change my way of thinking. Or if I find something to do, I find that helps. Like we're saying before, when you're so used to doing things, if I'm busy, you never think about it. You're off doing stuff. I could be doing stuff that makes me happy. But then if I come home and I could sit down for 3 hours after that second hour and you feel it coming on, it's like, get out and do something, or just change your way of thinking. Don't just, because I said, once it gets a hold and then you start playing over and over, then you start going down that rabbit's hole. It's like,
well, Lee, you know, that's the thing. Once you increase neurogenesis, the rumination totally stops. That's why I was talking about the cerebral lysine. That's the shocking thing. And that's why people take antidepressants and SSRIs. With SSRIs, it takes like 6 months. There's sexual side effects, all that. With the cerebral lysine, it takes 5 days, and there'll be no rumination on the 6th day. And it's pretty fast. It's really weird. It's like, imagine just if you have growth hormone in your brain, suddenly there's no rumination. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's because of it's weakening the structural connectivity in the default mode network that's doing that rumination, but it really weakens it. Like you can still, and you'll notice it's not just that it weakens the rumination, but when thoughts come in your mind, they won't be as negative. Sometimes you'll ruminate on positive, which is very bizarre also. By the way, when I get off the phone with you, I'm going to inject some cerebral lysine also. I haven't injected it for a couple of days. Keep in mind, guys, this is not like a highly, it's not like a drug that's like steroids or something like that. It's not highly controlled or anything like that. But
you mean you're not sitting there?
No, unfortunately, I have a 5 milliliter syringe. It's a crazy thing, but anyway, the point is, yeah, it's really useful. And I just wanted to mention to the audience, like the 3 steps, other than the things we talked about, the values, is increasing neurogenesis, reducing neuroinflammation, and then if you have neurotransmitter issues that you need to manipulate with a psychiatrist, you can do that also. But not just not giving up, but that everything will pass. This too shall pass. It will pass. It'll get better no matter what, as long as you stay there.
That's what I always say. Tomorrow's another day. The sun will rise. And then I used to always tell myself too, no matter how, I'd have those days where I'd wake up and I'd get to the gym, and I don't know why I'd say it. People are like, "Oh, how are you today, Lee?" I'm like, I woke up breathing. What a shame. Then I'm thinking, what the fuck am I saying? Because I'm thinking to myself, here I am. I have this good life. I woke up breathing. I should be happy, because I know somewhere around the world there is some poor person taking their last breath who's probably wishing they got more life ahead of them. And here I am, who's got everything, thinking, oh, fuck, I'm still here. I'm thinking, how dumb is that way of thinking? It's like, because I'm sure, like I said, some of these people who are dying, about to take their last breath, probably thinking, I wished I had 1,000 more breaths to take. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm still here. So
no, I've tried that so many times, Lee. I've tried to even make gratitude lists every morning for a year straight, 10 things I'm grateful for. None of that worked for me except prayer. The praying and thanking God, for some reason, the spiritual mixed with the gratitude, that hit and made me grateful. But it never worked before then, by the way. I don't know why. My father always used to do that to me when I was a kid. He used to be like, life sucks, but there are kids out there in Africa starving. They don't have food or whatever. So be grateful, whatever, be happy. And
my mum was like that. I put my dinner in the garbage. She'd be like, there's some kids in Africa starving. I'd be like, well, send it to them.
Yeah, what does this have to do with me? Because it's all about relative. What your relative. You were saying something, Fakhri. I cut you off. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, no, since we're ending this, I just want to say, again, you guys are not alone, and it's not, you'd be so surprised, Lee's a very successful person. I do my thing. We had Robert Williams commit suicide, Andy Weinstein. I mean, we have so many people that are so successful. So don't think, it's just yourself, and I'm going to, and honestly, like, I answer all my texts. I answer all my emails. I answer everything. So if any of you, I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. If any,
you cut off for a second. Sorry. When you said you were saying this from the bottom.
If any of you do need anything, I'm here. I will help you and give you the best advice possible. So don't think you guys are alone.
He really means that. Fakhri always responds to me so fast, and he's real, meaning, you've been there for everyone, I think. I also hear from other people, everybody that reaches out to you, always call them within a day and stuff. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much, Fakhri and Lee, for being with me. And hey, Fakhri, let's comment on that for a second. You mentioned that Robin Williams and Lee Priest, people have accomplished incredible things. Obviously, you've been a fan of Lee, and I just wanted to also say to Lee, we all, I mean, I know you don't feel like it, but to us, you're like, to me, you're like Arnold, by the way. It's weird, right? But I know, but for you, I know it's a little age group difference. But to me, you're
It's
like
funny,
Arnold. And in fact, I was never that impressed with Arnold. I was your pictures that I was looking at when I was a kid.
I was in a car yard one day with the wife, and this guy comes running over. Oh my God, it's Lee Priest. It's Lee Priest. And like I said, to me, that's really hard for me, even to this day, because, you know, you get a lot of athletes who do have the egos. To me, I'm just Lee. I'm just a dickhead guy that loves making people laugh or doing stupid shit. So I've never put myself on a pedestal or saw me as that. So even today when people do that, I get embarrassed. I was at this car yard not long ago, and this guy's like yells across, "Oh my God, it's Lee Priest!" And he comes running over, and he's got his hands on him. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Meeting you's like meeting Elvis." I'm like, "What?" I said, "Elvis was this great fucking singer."
No, it is like that. Weirdly.
I'm just the guy. I'm just the guy that goes to the gym and lift weights. I'm like, how the fuck do you compare me to Elvis?
Lee, do you remember that time that the first time I invited you on my podcast and I messed up the time and I got it wrong by one day and you got upset with me? I was depressed for like a day and a half. I swear, my wife hated you for like a week after that. She was so angry because she was like, "Who's this?" She doesn't know about who you are. She's like, "Who's this guy that upset you so much? You've never been upset about any interview." And I was like, "This is Lee Priest. You understand? He answered me and he was so nice. And I'm a nobody. I have 1,000 subscribers and he was willing to come. And I can't even get the goddamn time right. How messed up can I be? I thought Australia..." I'm like, what a retard. Who could think that Australia is behind? You know what I punished myself for days.
I'm saying the opposite. I never put you down, but I'm saying to my wife, look, I don't know who this guy is, but I went out of my way. I told him I'd do the show.
You were so specific. I know. That's what it was.
I'm sitting here ready. He thinks it's the same day or something, and I'm all ready to go. And I've changed my schedule to do the show. And now
I know. That's why I was so harsh on myself, is because I was like, I messed up. Anyway, the point is, you know, we just wanted to give you some props because I really know that Lee doesn't feel it himself. You know, he doesn't.
Be truthful for a second there, Leo. You went, that Lee Priest is a fucking asshole.
I did say that after. It took me a week. For a week, I was in pain. And then after, I was like, I have to move past this guy.
Gotta get a joint. Fucking asshole.
Yeah, exactly. The joint. Well, actually, the joint didn't come out yet. It came delayed a little bit. But anyway.
I got two good Lee Priest stories. So when I started dating my wife, you know, the road to the Olympia was out. You know, those were the VHS days.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember, you know, when I decided to compete at 26, I never looked at an NPC competitor. You know, I would look at Lee Priest, Sean Ray, you know, Lee Labrada, like guys like that I followed since I was 16, right? And I remember putting on a Lee Priest VHS tape one day, and, you know, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, you know, I'm getting hyped because I'm going to the gym. So I looked at my wife, I'm like, babes, do I look like Lee yet? She looks at me and goes, she goes, no. So I was like so pissed. So every couple of months I would put that on. And then eventually she was like, you put it on some size. Maybe you should compete now. That's one. And the second Lee Priest story was in 2000 at the Night of Champions. He walked by me, you know, and I'm like 220. You know, I did my first show. I just won the overall. I'm like, you know, I'm very confident in myself. And he walks by me, and there goes my confidence for like 2 years. You know, I was like, what the fuck is that? Or like, is that even humanly possible, man?
I remember I got fifth at that show, and everyone started booing. Boo!
I remember. I was there. I was one of them.
Like, everyone thought I would have got first or second. Jay won, and I got fifth, and the crowd went nuts. Yeah.
You know, Lee, I was gonna meet you when you came to Venice last time. Also, I just had something that came up. This was years before I came on YouTube. It must have been 2.5 years ago. Or something like that. Yeah. I was gonna go that time. Anyway, next time you come, hopefully we'll meet for real.
Well, I meant to be coming whenever they have it, because they've actually, like I said, they put that plaque of my name down there at Venice Beach. I got that Hall of Fame award at Venice Beach, so it has been put down there. But the ceremony just keeps getting put back due to COVID. So whenever they have one of the Muscle Beach shows, and I'll be coming over for it, so we'll be able to.
That would be a tremendous honor.
I keep saying to people now, the funny story is when I tell people I've got my thing, they're like, that must be such an honor. I said, yeah, because, you know, they've got the Joe Weider plaque, the Arnold Schwarzenegger plaque, Lou Ferrigno, Eddie. I said, tourists must come down there and go, oh, look, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, Lou Ferrigno. Who the fuck's Lee Priest?
Not at all the case. I'm telling you, that's not at all the case.
Who the hell's that?
But
let me Google.
But
he's some rude cunt from Australia. Look at him, always swear.
But that really speaks to people's own perception of themselves and their self-worth, just to leave it on a serious note. So this is something that everyone has to work on it, because look at Lee being someone that we all emulated, and I mean, to a tremendous degree. Like, I had pictures of you somewhere on my computer background, maybe my wall when I was 14 years old training. Probably the main reason I started training arms was because of you. And then I would like,
hey, don't.
No, but I know. I'm not trying to get. What I'm trying to say is, you'll sit there and actually tell yourself that like I'm shit, or I'm not, a worthwhile pro or something. When in reality, the way I see it is, to be honest, let me give you. I don't know anything about bodybuilding, right? But for me, if you place in the top 10 of the Olympia, but you're not like. Lee Priest is someone who you can say is one of the top arms in history, 3 ever in history of humanity. Top 3 arms. No one can take him out of the top 3 arms in history. So to me, that's higher than a top 3 qualification or a post in the Mr. Olympia. To me, that's like a Mr. O.
I got top 6 a couple of times at the Olympics.
Yeah, you got 6, right? But to me, that's like more than the 3.
Does that make me a top tier?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's sort of like an uncrowned Mr. Olympia in a way. Although in bodybuilding, they'll never do it because they really want that kind of like different kind of look together.
That's why I always say with bodybuilding, when people talk about this golf thing a bit, that when the people say, I always get asked, who was the best bodybuilder, who was this, who was that, and they say, look, anyone that can get up in any era in bodybuilding on the Olympia stage or a pro stage, to me, especially the Olympia, top 10. Some shows it's so subjective. Okay, you might have the winner as Ronnie Coleman, but then the second guy, to me, he's just as good. To say one guy is better than the other, it's so subjective. Yes, one guy could be bigger, but then Flex was more. I said there's different body types. Yeah. So when people say who was the best ever of all time, I said you can't narrow it down.
But you can say there are some people that you'll never forget, and Lee Priest will always be one of them. Right. See what I'm trying to say to the audience is that despite that, you won't feel that, and it won't make you happy when you're feeling depressed. That's not enough. So, everybody faces it. That's what Fakhri was really trying to say, I guess. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'll speak to you guys soon, huh?
Thank
you.
Brothers, please message Fakhri and Lee and send them some love as well.
All right. Anything you guys need, let me know. Thank you.